A lot of people have been asking me, what do I need to look out for if I'm flipping a house? So today I'm going to be doing a little bit of an unscripted video. I've got basic guidelines of some things that I want to talk to you about flipping houses and what you need to watch out for. My name is Sean Rampersad. I'm a mortgage broker. I flip houses on the side. I do about 10 to 15 houses per year, and it is a huge part of my income, and it has brought me great success in the last over the course of the last few years on the side. So it's important to know that when I'm getting into this, because I don't go and do any of the work myself. Basically, when I'm flipping property right now, I've got a guy that I put in charge of the property. I get all of the quotes myself. I choose the property myself because it's my hard-earned money that's going into this, but I don't go and do the physical work anymore at all. So the first thing I think we need to talk about is your budget. So sticking to your budget when you're doing a house flip is very important. I've had tons and tons of my buddies try to copy exactly what I'm doing, and they think they're geniuses, and they go and they spend too much money on these properties, and they think that they're gonna make a bunch of cash. Most of them lose and will never ever do it again. So sticking to a budget is gonna be absolutely huge if you're gonna be flipping a property. If you listen to some of the things that I have to say and some other people that flip houses have to say, then you'll probably be successful when you're flipping a property. But if you don't, there's a very good chance that you're gonna fail at it. So we wanna make sure that you make money. Second thing that I want to talk about is property values. So this goes hand in hand with the budget thing. So what I do is I have a real estate agent shopping around for houses for me all the time. And basically all she does is tries to find properties at the lowest value for the property type that I'm looking for. So the one that I'm doing most recently is a half a duplex. I was able to pick it up for $250,000, and there's going to be another video coming out right after this, next week actually, about that property and what I did to it. But basically I purchased this property for $250,000. The reason I bought the property is because we knew that in the condition it was in already, it was worth about $270,000. I walked in with an unconditional offer. It was a super strong offer onto this property, and I was able to get a hell of a deal on it. So I picked it up for $250,000. So I already got about $20,000 in profit built into that. So if I had just sold that property right then and there, I probably would have made $20,000 less my legal fees, less my real estate fees. So not a whole lot of money, not enough to make it really for me to do. So of course I'm going to put some effort into it, fix that property up, and get it to the value it needs to be for me to actually make some real money on it. The second thing we're going to talk about in regards to property value is you need to know what the property is worth now, today, based on the comparables only in the last 3 months. You only want to do the comparables in the last 3 months. Don't compare it to the last year because your market will change. 3 months maximum is how far you go back on what properties were sold for. That's how you're going to know if you're getting a good deal or not. Then have that same real estate agent and let them do the work. They're getting paid well. Have them do an appraisal on what the property would be worth if it was fully renovated. So new kitchen, new flooring, new paint, that type of thing, whatever you want to get into on the property. Find out how much it's worth after. That's how you're going to know if it's worth it for you to buy that property or not. The next thing you have to look for is the cost of labor and materials. So you walk into the property, you need to be able to estimate what that property is going to cost you to fix up to see if it's worth it. So now you have your spread between your current value, your future value, and now you got to figure out the in-between. So let's say the current value on the property that I'm working on right now is $250,000 is what I purchased it for. The renovated value was about $340,000 if I put some money into it. So now I got to figure out how I can put the least amount of money into it. Don't get fancy. If you try to get fancy and you go overboard on the renovations, you will not get your money out of the property. I promise you that. So make sure you listen to this video until the very end so that you can listen to all of the tips that I'm giving. So the next thing we need to calculate are the big costs. So number one is going to be electrical. So the first thing is, do I have to change the electrical panel? How much is it going to cost me for approximate electrical in the house? So if you're at a 60 amp gauge electrical on the house, you're going to have to upgrade that to a minimum of 100 amp for any bank to finance it. So that's the first cost. Where I am, that costs between $3,000 and $5,000 to get done. You may also require a little bit of a rewire on the inside of the property. So I always factor in another $1,000 to $2,000 in electrical expense on top of that. Then we're going to calculate out your plumbing cost. Do you need to change the tubs? Do you need to change the sinks? Is it old copper piping? What's the situation there? So you can look at all of this without an inspector. If you want to go in unconditionally, you have to be able to decide on if you're going to buy it or not without an inspection done. So you have to be able to look at this property and say, okay, do I need to put a new tub in? Do I need a new toilet? Do I need? And you calculate out approximately how much your plumbing cost is going to be. Then we move on to flooring. So flooring is one of those big things. Even if it has okay flooring on the house, I still go over it, or I still replace it. I replace it to whatever today's modern is. Flooring is cheap for the value it brings to a house. So make sure you replace the flooring in every house that you do. So basically, flooring should cost somewhere between $3.50 to $4 per square foot installed. So you take the total square footage of the main floor, add the basement if it has a basement in the property as well, and you calculate out approximately how much the flooring is going to cost. So if it's 1,000 square feet, it's going to cost about $4,000 to replace all the flooring in the property. If it has a basement, it's 1,000 square feet, then it's going to cost approximately $7,000 or $8,000 to replace all the flooring. But it adds such a huge value. The next thing is paint. How much is paint going to cost you on this property? How much is paint labor is going to cost you? There's a good chance that the labor is going to cost you more than what the paint actually costs you on the property. But calculate out and estimate that out. The next thing is appliances. So you need to look at the fridge, stove, washer, dryer. The washer and dryer can be old. That's not a huge value. But the fridge and stove is a massive, massive value. You want stainless steel in there. You want modern. It's cheap. So what I do in order to get cheap appliances is I go to the shops that buy the dented fridges and stoves. So they have dented fridges and stoves, they have dented dishwashers, and they go for half price of what a regular one would go for. So definitely take a look at that. So calculate that into your expense. The next is kitchen. I usually try to paint over old kitchens and then just change the handles and the fixtures. Sometimes I put a whole new kitchen in. The cheapest way to get a kitchen is from a kitchen company or from Lowe's. So there are premium kitchen companies out there. If you look at the smaller companies, they're fighting for the business and they will be a lot cheaper than the premium companies are. So definitely look at that. Also, Lowe's has prefabricated kitchens. Lowe's, Rona, Home Depot, all of them have prefabricated kitchens and they're cheap. So you can literally replace a kitchen in a day. Gut the kitchen and put the new kitchen in place. You don't need highly skilled laborers for this because they're prefabricated. They're done. The box, the door, everything's on there already. You screw them into the wall and you're good to go. So that adds a huge value. Countertops. Countertops also add a huge value. If you don't want to spend too much, they have really fancy bamboo looking countertops. Those ones are just fantastic. They look great. They're easy to install and they are cheap. So definitely check that out. Next thing I want to talk about is the utility room. So if the furnace is ancient, you should replace it. The furnaces in these smaller type homes don't cost a lot of money. One thing to mention that I didn't include in this is that I never really buy super high-end homes or anything like that. It just ties up too much cash, and I find that the profit is about the same as the lower end to mid-range homes. So if you want good advice, stick with the lower end and mid-range to start off with. If you find a great deal on a big home in the future, then that's your prerogative, but the lower end and mid-range houses are the ones to go for. I like to buy houses that are absolute disasters. So Drug houses are fine. Hoarder houses are fine. Those are the ones that you're going to get the really, really great deals on. Anyhow, back to the utility room. If the furnace is old, replace it. Call a furnace company. Make sure there are all these guys that are online, Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and that type of thing, and they are presenting themselves like furnace companies. Most of them aren't. So make sure they are getting permits, because I find those companies don't get permits. They'll sell you a cheap used furnace or something like that, and they'll come in and install it, but they don't get permits on it. So definitely you're gonna want a company that's getting permits. Take a look at the hot water tank. If it's ancient, then you may want to replace it. If it's just old, I'm talking 15 years old, then I would leave the hot water tank as such. Why take on the expense if it's not necessary? But furnace is an absolute value. Windows. Let's talk about windows. So windows, I never replace them unless they're wood. So if you have wooden windows, like those things gotta go. You're gonna want windows that are either vinyl or metal around the window itself. So I don't replace the ones that are metal already on it. It doesn't add significant value. It looks a lot better, trust me on that, and I understand that it does, but from my experience, it's never added a huge value into money I get out of a house flip, and windows are a pain in the butt to install. You never have the right sizes. If you call a custom window company, it takes forever for them. So a lot of times I just go to Habitat for Humanity, or I go to Rona or Home Depot, and I buy the windows there. If they're not the perfect size, sometimes I have to cut into the house. Sometimes I buy sizes that are smaller, so I build just a bigger frame in the old hole. But that's the way to buy windows. It's much cheaper to do it that way. So we've touched on electrical, we've touched on plumbing. Let's touch on legal fees and real estate fees. This is something that you need to know. So legal fees should be around $1,500 approximately. And then your real estate fees, depending on the price range of the house, but where I am is 7% on the first 100,000, 3% on the balance. I've made a deal with my real estate agent that if I purchase the house off of her, then she will sell the house for $1,000. So basically, I give her $1,000, but then I still pay the other agents out there full commission to sell the house. So you're going to want to factor in a good chunk of change for real estate fees. It's your biggest expense is going to be the real estate fees. When you're purchasing a house, there is no real estate fee. So nothing out of your pocket. But when you're selling the house, then you pay the real estate fees. You could also try to sell it independently. It can be a pain in the butt. I don't have time for it, so I always just deal with the real estate agent. They do the best that they can possibly do. Other few things that you need to look out for when you're flipping a house is asbestos or vermiculite. So one of the last houses that I recently did has asbestos insulation in the ceiling. I've also had properties that had asbestos in the flooring. If I find out that there's asbestos, I will remediate that section, but I avoid moving it around at all costs. If you start moving the asbestos around, it gets released into the air, and then you have to call a remediation company that could cost you tens of thousands of dollars to have all the asbestos professionally removed from the house. So I like to leave it undisturbed. So what I did in the last property that I did, instead of replacing all the flooring and peeling the tiles, the old tiles up that had the asbestos under it, I left it down, and I went right over all of that. So basically that seals the asbestos in, and it is untouched, and it will not phase the house. Another one was in the attic. There was some asbestos, so I just told my guys, don't go up in the attic, don't touch the attic. We're not doing anything up there. We went right over the ceiling, we painted it and textured it, and so we didn't have to deal with any of the asbestos. Mold. If you have mold in the house, then you have water in the house. You have water in the house, you got to find the source, get rid of it, and remediate the mold. So this last house that I did, I had some mold around the baseboards and up the drywall a little bit in the basement. I was able to find a small crack in the foundation. We remediated that crack, and then we removed the drywall. Drywall is so cheap, just get rid of it, throw it in the garbage. Every single time. If there's any mold on it, get rid of it, throw it in the garbage. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to spray over it. It's so cheap. Next is baseboards. Baseboards are a huge value, so I always replace the baseboards in every property and the trim around the doors on the interior of the house with a 3-inch squared up baseboard. Right now that's in style, square, minimalistic, you know, those kind of words, but that's what I do right now. In the future, if things if round becomes a style again, then I'll put rounder baseboards or fancier baseboards, but right now I just do squared up, simple baseboards. I like to paint the doors in the house a tricorn black color. I think that it adds huge value. So this is a part of the finishing. Finishing is really important when you're doing a house flip, especially when you're doing it on the low end, because you want to be able to provide something high end in a property that was low end, so that you can give an offer higher value to the people that are buying the property. So I never cheap out on the finishing. I always buy fancy door handles, nice baseboards. In the kitchens, nice handles for all the doors. Front door, back door, painted a nice color with a nice either black or gold handle. That's what's in style at the moment. And you never want to cheap out on those types of things. Some other costs that you need to take into consideration is garbage disposal. So garbage disposal, usually it costs $600 to $1,000 a bin. There are companies that will just leave the bin on site. Sometimes we fill up 2 bins, so it's like $1,200. Next is cheap labor. So I get my demo crew in, and these guys are cheap labor. They're paid $15 an hour, and you have to take that into consideration because they're not going to move as fast as you would like them to move. That's for sure. Next, after that, you're going to talk about your expensive labor. So you're going to want to pay some people more. You're going to want to pay whoever your framer is a little bit more money. You're going to want to pay your electrician well. You're going to want to pay your plumber well, that type of thing, because you want them in and out, that you want them prioritizing your job. The one thing I want you to consider is that flipping houses is about speed. It's absolutely about speed. It's not just about the overall cost. If you tie up 200 grand of your money for a year and you only make 20 grand off of it on a flip, that's stupidity. It doesn't make any sense, because then you're factoring in property taxes, you're factoring all these different expenses, carrying costs. So it doesn't make sense. You want to get in and out of your flip as fast as you can. Guys, if you liked the video, that's all I really wanted to touch on today. If there's anything else you want to know about flipping, please comment below. If you like the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. I'm doing some awesome real estate, mortgage, and finance videos for you. Thanks for watching.